On a tragic afternoon in 2021, Caroline Wanjiku Maina stepped into what she believed was a lifeline, a business deal meant to pull her out of a mounting financial crisis. Her salon in Hurlingham was struggling, and with the withdrawal of just about 350,000 shillings and promises of more from her boyfriend, Caroline was ready to reinvest, to rebuild, to rise again. But that same afternoon, everything changed. She never made it back home. We found her car abandoned in Kawangware and her body dumped in the thickets of Kajiado. And what she began as hope ended in horror, untold and graphic horror. Tonight, we are revisiting the murder of Caroline Wanjiku Maina and ask the difficult question: how did a case so brutal, calculated, end with her suspected killers walking free? Welcome to the program. This is not just another murder story on your screen. This is Murder Tips, where the truth is buried in the evidence, signed in blood. And so it begins. Before she became a headline, before her name found a place in police reports and courtroom mentions, Caroline Wanjiku Maina was first and foremost a mother. A single mother of two boys, carrying the full weight of their upbringing on her shoulders and doing so with a quiet determination that masked just how much she was holding together on her own. For years, she had chosen stability, working in the structured world of marketing at Cooperative Bank, but deep down she knew that the salary, however steady, would never quite match the life she envisioned for herself and for her children. And so, in a decision that many would consider risky, even reckless, she walked away from that certainty and stepped into the unpredictable world of business. Because for Caroline, survival was never going to be enough. She wanted growth. She wanted freedom. She wanted to build something that her sons could one day look at and understand the sacrifices behind it. And so she began to juggle between jobs, ideas, between opportunities that came and went just as quickly as they appeared, immersing herself in the world of tenders where connections really mattered. Timing was everything, and every deal carried both promise and risk in equal measure. The road out of Nairobi, believe me, stretches long and winding, carrying us away from the noise of the city and into a story that refuses to fade. Behind the wheel is Kaka Nick Musyoka. Musyoka has built a record of being steady and focused on the road, while beside him, videographer Dennis Gikera quietly frames the journey, capturing not just where we are going, but what it means to go back to where it all began, Embu County. We passed through long stretches of eucalyptus trees and their tall, slender trunks standing in silent formation. Flowery thickets bloom beneath, and that is just adding color to a journey that is anything but light. For some time I thought it was a drive, a road trip, but now I realize a lot more. It actually is a return. Pauline Maina, who's been directing us all along, waits by the gate. Her presence, I see, is warm, but her eyes, I also can see, carry the weight of everything that has brought us here. Inside this compound stands the home of their eldest sister, Rose Maina, a place that holds more than just memories on every single day. It holds what remains. Because here in Embu, in the town where the three sisters once began their lives together, is where Caroline's story continues to echo. It is here that her two sons now live, taken in by Rose, raised through strength, sacrifice, and a grief that does not go away but only settles amid struggle and recurrent pain. And today, within these walls, we seek to understand what truly happened from those who carry it every single day.
My name is Rose Maina. I'm the one who was after Carol. So basically, I'm the firstborn now, because Carol was our firstborn.
Naitwa Pauline Maina. Mi ndio last born wa sister wa Carol. To me, she was more of a mother than a sister.
Pauline and Rose requested us not to interview their grieving parents back in Murang'a. The pain of losing a daughter and the thought that justice will never be served, at least not how they know it, has been heavy on them. They have been unable to move on. Now, back to Caroline's story of growth and resignation from the banking sector. Her sisters say it was not easy, but slowly, almost quietly, her efforts began to take shape in ways that could be seen and felt. A high-end salon in Kilimani, polished and ambitious, a reflection of her taste and her belief that she was meant for more. There was a modest Toyota Axio that she had acquired through a loan with NCBA Bank, paying some 29,000 a month. You will shortly see why this detail is important when that car goes missing. With her Toyota Axio that cost some 1.1 million, Carol could be everywhere she needed to be for her business and for her boys.
Na pia alikuwa anafanya tender businesses with the county government of Embu, Murang'a, Nyeri, Kirinyaga. So she was basically a business lady.
To those around her, she was building a life, piece by piece, step by step, navigating a world that rarely made space for women like her, let alone single mothers trying to rise on their own terms. But to her sons, she was building something far more important, a future shaped by resilience, sacrifice, and the quiet promise that their lives would be different. Rose still believes they can be something, though with the quiet feeling that they stood a better chance during the lifetime of their mother.
The people who killed Carol really walibadilisha maisha ya watoto, because these were kids who had even a future. Sisemi ati hawatakuwa na future, but maybe they could even be having a better future than the way watakuwa nao sahi.
Yet, even in her strength, Caroline Wanjiku Maina did not exist in isolation. Because in her life was a man, Edwin Odiward Otieno, a businessman who stepped into her world as a partner and as someone who seemed to understand the terrain she was navigating. He was there offering advice, I don't know which one, sharing ideas, we also don't know which ones, and at times opening doors into opportunities that appeared bigger, more lucrative, and perhaps more dangerous than anything she had ever encountered before. Never mind, Edwin Otieno was 9 years younger than Caroline.
Edwin was her boyfriend. Naweza sema mimi sikuwahi meet, lakini nilikuwa najua ni boyfriend yake. I cannot really tell how they met. Either they met uko kwa biashara or something, ama kwa hoteli ya Carol, because you had a hotel in Kilimani. Alikuwa na spa na hoteli, ilikuwa combined, imeshikana. Sasa sijui kama hapo ndio walipatana ama walipatana aje.
And wherever Edwin went, there was always another presence, less visible but constant. His friend Samuel Okoth Adinda, the man behind the wheel. he was a quiet observer of conversations, movements, and moments that would later become critical pieces in a story that no one yet knew was unfolding. Let's now go straight to the crux of this story. That day in 2021, the 12th day of February 2021. Like many others before it, it began with intention and purpose, as plans were made and movements were aligned, leading to a meeting at Steamer Plaza in Ngara, Nairobi. A meeting that on the surface carried all the markings of routine business, of yet another deal in the life of a woman who had built herself on risk and resilience. But what seemed ordinary would become the beginning of the end, because that would be the last time Caroline Wanjiku Maina was seen alive.
Just 2 days before Valentine's, it was on a Saturday. I had just come from work. My small sister Pauline called me. She told me that a friend of Carol had called her. She's called Joyce. Joyce called Pauline and said that Carol didn't return the previous night, that is on Friday. And it's like, since it was very rare of Carol to just disappear and her phone goes off, to her she felt like it was not very usual. So when Pauline called me, I went to her home on that Saturday afternoon. So I told her, because it's late, there's no point of us traveling from Embu to Nairobi. Let's just organize tomorrow in the morning on a Sunday, we travel. And that is what we did.
On the D-Day that Carol was killed, they met at Steamer Plaza. And her friend, one of Carol's friends, yeye ndio alikuwa anajua mahali Carol yuko na nini alikuwa anaenda kufanya. Because after she was paid some money by the county government of Embu, alikuwa anataka ku increase shares zake zenye alikuwa ameweka huko Steamer Sacco. And Edwin being her ex-boyfriend, by that time walikuwa wameachana. But I think ni ile unaachana but you don't burn bridges. So she calls Edwin. Hi, do you know someone at Steamer Sacco who can help me do 1, 2, 3? And he says yes. So come, I'll connect you to a person who will do that. According to the story that Carol's friend alipeana kulingana na vile Carol alikuwa amemuelezea chenye anaenda kufanya Steamer Sacco. So Carol alienda akapark gari yake na akatoka akaenda akaona Edwin. I don't know what conversation went on there, but alienda bank na akatoa hiyo pesa. Hiyo yenye inasemekananga ni 350, mimi sijui ilikuwa ngapi. Na si ndio alitoka ndio akaenda kwa Edwin so that they do the increasing of the shares sasa to be connected to the person who was helping out. But I don't think it ever happened. Ndio sasa from there Carol akadisappear.
It was a plan she shared casually but clearly with a friend of hers, Emily Njuki, outlining her movements for the day, the errands she intended to run, the people she expected to meet. All these without ever imagining that those details would soon become the very threads investigators would cling to in trying to retrace her final hours.
And we are glad because she had already shared information of where she's going with her friend. Kwa sababu kama hangekuwa amesema mahali anaenda, I'm very sure hatungepata Carol. Hatungepata mwili yake. Because alikuwa ameambia the friend that I'm going to meet Edwin at some Steamer Sacco to do 1, 2, 3. So hata hiyo kusema ilisaidia. Na one of the friends is a witness kwa hii kesi. Huyo mwenye kupigiwa simu na Carol akaambiwa. So isipokuwa ni hiyo information, Brian niko sure saizi bado tungekuwa tunatafuta mwili ya Carol.
No one knew exactly what Edwin did for a living or knew him well, apart from living in Green Park at the river, and that he came from Apondo Kasaye in Pap Onditi location in Nyakach. The only other available detail about Edwin was that he owned a Toyota Crown KCN 300D, whose logbook he had deposited with the Platinum Credit Company after securing a huge loan from the lender. Again, I will explain why that is important, or you might just see that.
Remember that thing being mentioned, and now I was asking, who is this Edwin? Because me, I've never even heard of Edwin. At least Emily, I knew her. Joyce nilikuwa namjua.
I only met Edwin at Kabete when he was arrested. I had not met him before. Hata sijui story yake kabisa. Nilimwona, yeah, or whatever he does.
Edwin and Caroline met at Ngara, and when she got to Ngara, that meeting would not be between two people, but at least four, because Edwin was not alone. With him was his friend Samuel Okoth Adinda, now drawn into a sequence of events that would soon unravel into something far darker than anyone outside that car could see. Then there was Rashid, a friend of Edwin, and a Joel. Details about these two people have never been fully shared. They were the hired men tasked with killing Caroline, at least according to official statements from Edwin and Samuel himself. Caroline was captured on CCTV footage at an ATM booth before withdrawing 350,000 shillings from her account at the Cooperative Bank branch in Ngara, a transaction that would later stand as one of the last confirmed traces of her alive. And then, almost as if sensing the transition from the ordinary to the unknown, she made one final call.
No, that is a story from Emily, or rather her statement. She said that Caro had told me there's something they were doing with Edwin. In the last call that we had, she told me, Emily, hata nimeona gari ya Edwin, we tutaongea baadaye.
These again would become her last known words. From that moment on, Caroline Wanjiku Maina vanished. Back in Nairobi, concern slowly turned into alarm, and alarm into panic as hours passed without word about Caroline or from Caroline.
We found Joyce was waiting for us at Kencom. They were with a friend called Munywa, also a friend to Caro. They told us that they had already reported the case at Mudhangari police station, but they also needed us to also go there again. So we went to the police station. We confirmed they had done the case. Yeah, and so now we were told that we have to now wait for the investigations to start. That is how it started. In a way, I think my life, I don't know, it turned out to be so stressful.
The first people to get the information about Caro's disappearance, hao ndio walitafuta gari na traka, walienda Mudhangari police station, wakareport that Caro hapatikani since Friday. So it was on a Sunday. So everybody got worried because haikuwa kawaida yake. Caro si yule mtu atatoka tu anaenda hata bila kuambia house girl ati sirudi ama sikuji. Pia friends wake waka get worried because si yule mtu atakuzimia simu ama atazima tu simu without informing you. Unaona? So the first people who got the information from the house help, wao ndio wali get worried, wakakimbia Mudhangari police station, wakareport. Na before hata wa report, ni kama walikuwa wamesha track gari. Wakaona mahali gari iko. So, unaona that is double worry now, because sasa Caro anaishi South B. Amedisappear Friday, gari iko Kawangware, na simu zake zote ziko off.
And almost immediately followed a string of arrests. Edwin Odiwor Otieno was arrested. Samuel Okoth Adinda, his friend, also arrested. Stevenson Odworo Uma and Masi Gitiri Mongo. 4 names drawn together by proximity, by association, by the final hours of a woman who had simply gone out to make a deal. Now she cannot be found. The probe will later exonerate Mercy Gitiri Mongo, a director of environment at the Embu County government.
Mercy alikuwa anaconnectiwa juu aliandikia Carol some threatening messages kwa sababu I think kuna pesa walikuwa wanaitishana or something. Na sasa unaona amelipwa. So Mercy alikuwa anamwandikia threatening messages. Alafu sasa yeye ameandika threatening messages, alafu mtoto wetu akapotea. So si pia lazima angeshikwa tu. Because sasa hizi messages pia ni evidence. Ni kama wewe uniandikia threatening messages sasa tuko na wewe hapa alafu nitoke hivi. I go get killed. Brian will be the first suspect kushikwa. So that was a connection. But I think pia alipatikana she's innocent of some. She has no case to answer.
Also exonerated was Stevenson Ouma. Another was a tout and a high school student who were found with Caroline's mobile phones. Now, in Edwin's version of events, the journey from Gara to Kawangware, where Caroline's vehicle was found, begins with what he describes as a simple everyday errand. Caroline saying she wanted to buy vegetables. He says Carol then got into Edwin's vehicle together with Joel, Rashid, and Samuel. Carol was seated at the back seat, sandwiched between the two men, while Samuel Okoth took the driver's seat. Edwin says he instead ended up driving ahead in Caroline's car, while the others followed behind as they moved toward Kawangware. Edwin says that on arrival in Gatina, Kawangware, he alighted and went to check on the occupants of the black Toyota Crown, registration KCN 300D. You want to remember, this vehicle belongs to Edwin, and by this time, Edwin is driving Caroline's car, and inside Edwin's car are 4 other people, including his driver and friend Samuel Okoth and Caroline Maina, Rashid and Ajoel. It is here that Edwin claims that he noticed Rashid was restraining Caroline from behind and that she was no longer able to speak. She was not responding. Edwin says he panicked at the scene and that the group decided to drive back toward Nairobi CBD, after which Edwin says he left separately on a motorbike heading towards Gateway Mall and asked Samuel Okoth to return his car later on once they sort out their business with Carol. Later that evening, according to Edwin, Samuel Okoth returned the vehicle and told him that Caroline had been killed and her body dumped in Kajiado. Edwin further claims that Samuel handed him 50,000 before leaving. From this minute, Murder Tapes would like you to look at Edwin Otieno as an accomplice and a conspirator, at least for now. When we begin to poke more holes into this story, you might see him as something different. Edwin began actively searching for Caroline and even joined her family in trying to establish her whereabouts. In fact, on the same day her sisters went to Kabete police station to record statements, Edwin himself drove them there, despite what investigators say was his knowledge of key details surrounding her disappearance. By then, detectives led by lead investigator of that case, Ernest Kinywa, had already begun piecing together a different account. Using CCTV systems along the highways, they had identified Edwin's vehicle trailing Caroline's movement, and that lead brought them back to Edwin Otieno, the boy from Pap Onditi. When the timelines, the movements, and the digital trail were put together, Investigators say they knew exactly who they needed to speak to next.
I think Edwin was the very last person they were seen with. But I understand that Sam was the driver. So the two people should know the truth. Edwin and Sam. Yeah. Considering the fact that wao ndio walikuwa na yeye the very last moments.
And of course, Carol did not come to Sam.
Yeah. And actually, even from the phone call, Carol was coming to see Edwin. Yeah. So the two of them should tell us what happened. Yeah. And we'll live to be convinced that it is them who took away her life.
Edwin was arrested on that very day, the 15th of February 2021, at Kabete police station, where he had driven the sisters to find ways of finding the missing Caroline. The search for Caroline was not just led by detectives, but by a family unwilling to sit still, coming through Nairobi streets, hospitals, and mortuaries, flooding social media with her image, her name, her story, and hoping desperately for a sign that she was still alive. What they did not know, and what no one yet knew, was that miles away, in the quiet expanse of Paranai in Kajiado, the story had already reached its most brutal conclusion.
I think Wednesday night, I got a call from Kenya. He told me that Thursday tusishinde tukienda sana because it was our norm. Tulikuwa tunaamka tunasema sasa leo tutaenda wapi? Tunaenda Thika, tunaenda huku. So he told me, I think Wednesday usiku, akaniambia kesho msirauke, you just come to Kajiado. Make your way to Kajiado. Hata sikumuuliza what was going on. Nikamwambia ni sawa basi tutakuja. So nikamuuliza ni Kajiado wapi? Kajiado Hospital. Of course nilikuwa na a lot of pressure, the kids are here. Nikamwambia ni sawa. We drove all the way. It was my cousin who was driving us. Tukaenda Kajiado. We reached there around, I think, noon or around 1. So we were in communication. That time we were in communication with Kenya. He would guide us. So tukatafuta hiyo hosi ya Kajiado. Kufika, the way you reach in a hospital, then anakuambia, sio hapo kwa hospitali, kujeni hapa nyuma. So I'm wondering, where are we going? So Alice, now we were my cousin, tukaenda hapo wherever we were being directed to go. Tukaenda and sure enough, ilikuwa mortuary. So I remember I fainted, because even before I entered, because I think I had already gone through a lot of torture. It wasn't easy for me. Then Kenya, now the investigation officer told me, Rose, kuna msichana amepatikana and I want you to come and identify her. Tuambie kama ni Carol, because from the photos zenye tulikuwa tumeona kwa CCTV ya cooperative, hiyo sweater ilikuwa ina match yenye alikuwa amevaa. So I had to, lazima ningejipea nguvu. So I woke up, I went to the mortuary and I saw Carol's body. At some point I didn't want to believe that it was her, because the way I went from since Sunday when I got that call and we started searching for her, never in my mind that I did cross that I'll find her in a mortuary. So I can just say that my life changed from since then.
According to a filing statement by the investigating officer Ernest Kinyua, it was actually the two suspects, Edwin Otieno Odiwor and Samuel Okotha Dinda, who had taken them back to the place where the body had been dumped. This was no longer just a scene, it was a place of evidence. And what they found began to paint a picture that was disturbing as it was deliberate. A blue surgical mask identified as the one Caroline had worn that day at the height of a global pandemic that had made such items a constant in daily life. There was a pair of handcuffs that were used to restrain her. These handcuffs, Edwin will later tell detectives, belonged to Rashid. There was a company stamp linking the scene not just to Caroline's body, but to her identity, her work, and her life. It was her company stamp. Each item was just a fragment of a story that was slowly, painfully coming together. When we return, we step into the final hours of Caroline Wanjiku Maina, into the movements, the moments, and the chilling brutality of a crime that would end her life. And we examine a system that many say bent under pressure, raising troubling questions on where the line between justice and compromise was drawn. And so we take a short break. The injuries told their own story. Her wrists bore marks of restraint. Her body had signs of assault. Her eyes had been gouged out. Now, I have been around murders and killings for long enough, and looking at what we had in Caroline Maina's story, there was no room for ambiguity. Caroline Wanjiku Maina had not just been killed, she had been tortured. Whoever killed her was after two things: crucial information or a punishment for something that had caused the perpetrators so much loss, real or imagined. But what was that?
Brian, I will tell you this for free. Caro is the kind of a person mwenye hakuwa na ubaya na mtu. You know, I've known her for so many years as a sister, and I can tell you for sure, whatever led to her death, hata mimi, hiyo ni swali najiulizanga sana sana sana. Ni nini ilifanya Caro wetu akauawa? You know, she was a soft lady, a lady who knew kujitafutia, you know, very hardworking. So, hata mimi nakuanga ina puzzle. Nini exactly ilifanya mtoto wetu akauawa? Ama whatever the reason that was, why would you do that to a person? You know?
There was nothing like tenders of kwanza KPLC. The only tenders that Carol was doing is a county hapa Embu. At least the ones that I know of. Kama ilikuwa na ingine, maybe alipass kama sijajua. But the only one that I'm very, very sure of is that she was doing some tenders with hapa county ya Embu. So all the others, haikuwa. And if it was there, up to now, someone would even have called me at least hata, ama hata nijue tu, in one way or the other. So, hiyo naweza sema it was just stories ya media, and I don't even know ilitoka wapi exactly. I have never even understood up to now.
And there was no tender like 20 million ya Kenya Power. The only tender that Caro was given at Kenya Power, and I have the documents, if you want them naweza share. I have the documents, ilikuwa ya 2 million. Na hata hakupatiwa, because mimi mwenyewe ndio nilikuwa naenda kwa Kenya Power kumshughulikia. At some point, I don't know what happened, Caro hakupatiwa hiyo tender. Even after we dropped all the papers and we signed contracts and hakupewa. So, hiyo tender inasemekananga ya 20 million ilifanya uawe. There was nothing like that. You know, sometimes people talk, lakini haujui nini unasema. You know, I was very close with Caro, na nilikuwa nafanya biashara zake mingi sana. Alikuwa anani-involve kwa mambo zake. I have the documents here with me kwa emails na hizo zote. So hizo deal gone so na nini, there was nothing like that. About your 350,000, I don't know sasa, but there were pictures shared akitoa pesa kwa ATM. The investigating officer ako nazo. Alitoa pesa, but sasa sijui alitoa pesa ngapi. Hiyo 350,000, you know, I cannot tell because I was not there. Lakini ukweli alitoa pesa kwa bank. But mambo ya tender ya 20 million, Hakuna kitu kama hiyo ilikuwa. Yes, there was a tender alikuwa anatafuta Kenya Power. Na hiyo tender it was just 2 million shillings which hakupata. Na tulikuwa tumesign documents zote na tukaenda kwa Kenya Power, lakini hakupata hiyo tender.
I was among the journalists who spent hours at the Kenyatta University funeral home that day, where a post-mortem examination by Dr. Charles Muturi later confirmed the brutality of her final moments. Caro had died of blunt force trauma. She had been dead for like 18 days, and her body had undergone extensive cyanosis.
The cause of the death has been due to head injuries. She had some bruises here and also at the back.
The narrative of who Caro was had begun to stand in sharp, painful contrast of how she died. An alumna of Limuru Girls High School, a graduate of Egerton University with a degree in food science, a former employee of Cooperative Bank where she had worked for 6 years before choosing the uncertain path of business and started her real estate company, Dunmore Limited. A woman described by her family as hardworking, jovial, trusting, someone who made friends easily, perhaps too easily, in a world that does not always reward openness. Above all, a mother. What begins as a meeting for her then starts to resemble something arranged. Call data shows that Edwin was in constant communication with Caroline before the encounter, the last known person to speak to her, while at the same time placing the other men, Samuel, Rashid, Joel, in contact and in motion, converging in Nairobi before proceeding towards Ngara, after which their phones go off almost at the same time. Caroline's phone continues to move through the city, from Ngara to Chiromo to Kileleshwa and finally to Kawangware, where it goes off. So, who switched off Caroline's phone? By the time her car is found, there is a laptop on the back seat. The prosecution later charged Edwin Otieno and Samuel Okoth with murder. It was strange that, for 4 years, that case never kicked off. No witness in court, no case, and a string of adjournments. The duo was released on cash bail.
Na tulipoenda, suspects waliletwa kotini plus their lawyer. Lakini lawyer wao akasema yeye hajapitia file. So wapewe time wapitie hiyo file. And nothing really serious happened after that because mlikuwa mnaitwa mention, mnaambiwa imekuwa postponed. So at some point, of course, you get tired. You're also spending. You're also using your money to attend hizo vitu. We live in Embu, so we have to travel to Nairobi, come back, then you go, nothing happens. And so, at some point, tukakaa ni kama sasa, hiyo kesi imenyamaziwa.
On the 29th of January 2025, the prosecution reached a plea bargain with Samuel Okoth for a lesser charge of manslaughter. But that plea bargain is one of the strangest things I have seen in recent history, but not strange at the ODPP. It's a common occurrence.
Samuel Okoth ameomba plea bargain. Na ikasemekana as a family we must get involved to tuseme kama it is okay, we are accepting his plea bargain. Tukasema hapana. I personally did a letter na nikatuma kwa ODPP office. I have a soft copy na pia najua niko na hard copy na tukakataa. And from there sijawahi pata simu nyingine kuambiwa kama plea bargain ilipeanwa ama haikupeanwa. You know, we were never involved. So as a family we feel like hii kesi ya sistangu haikusaviwa justice venye ilifaa. Na I believe mtu akiomba plea bargain, the fact that they involved us as a family We also had a right to know. Kama hii plea bargain, Sam alipatiwa, kotini ilisemekana aje, you know. But hawajawahi fanya hivyo. So we feel it's unfair that hii kesi ya sistangu haijawahi pewa ile justice inafaa.
The prosecution's plea bargain with Samuel Okoth Adinda changes the center of gravity in this case. In agreeing to a lesser charge of manslaughter, Samuel places himself at the scene and admits that he was with Caroline alongside his two friends and that the group had set out to Kajiado in search of land. He further admits that a confrontation broke out between him and Caroline and that in the course of that confrontation, he picked up a whiskey bottle and struck Caroline on the head, an act he says resulted in her death. With that, Samuel Okoth had admitted to killing Caroline Maina. But that admission sits in sharp contrast with the wider web of statements and contradictions surrounding the case. And that is why Murder Tapes would like to declare here and now that it believes the plea bargain signed between the ODPP and Samuel Okoth Adinda was defective and not exactly in pursuit of the truth. Joel and Rashid, the two men repeatedly mentioned in Edwin's account, were never formally charged. They never stood trial and were never independently identified in any verifiable investigative record. That left a critical gap between the story told and the people who were said to have been in it. Also, the admission by Samuel Okoth on hitting Caro with a whiskey bottle is a complete departure from previous narrative and available evidence. That admission does not explain what Dr. Charles Muturi described as multiple abrasions on Caro's left hand. It does not explain the pattern of abrasions on her wrists as a result of the handcuffs and several subcutaneous bruises. Also, if Samuel Okoth was driving the said motor vehicle to Kajiado to look for land, how did he hit Caro sitting on the back seat with a bottle? Then, if land was involved and Joel, Samuel and Rashid were going with Caroline to buy land, why would Edwin come up with the Kawangware story, telling detectives that four men were driving to Kawangware to take Caroline to buy vegetables? How strange. Now, how did a struggling Caro find money to think of buying a parcel of land in Kajiado? Edwin's version has already placed a key moment in Kawangware, claiming the group moved from Gatina and later dispersed toward Nairobi CBD. But independent tracking tells a very different story. This is the moment you need to remember why Edwin's logbook being with Platinum Credit Limited is important. So, look here. Data obtained from Easy Tracking Company, working on behalf of Platinum Credit, maps a continuous and uninterrupted movement of Edwin's vehicle that does not align with his narrative. The car, that is Edwin's car, is first recorded at Sundowner Hotel in Athi River at 6:55 in the morning. It then moves to South Sea in Nairobi, which, interestingly, is the same area where Caroline is confirmed to have stayed. From there, it proceeds to the Ngara Steamer Plaza area, arriving at 11:02 a.m. before heading to Ngong Road in Kilimani. It then travels for several hours towards Carrero in Kajiado before returning to Hilton Gardens Inn and eventually back to Athi River where Edwin resides. So, critical at this moment, and the ODPP should have seen this, at no point in this verified sequence is there evidence of a stop in Gatina, Kawangware, or any movement that is consistent with Edwin's claim that the group passed through or broke apart there. The vehicle does not even go to Nairobi CBD, where Edwin says he later took a motorbike to Athi River. And so, the question becomes unavoidable. If the vehicle, that is Edwin's vehicle, never went to Kawangware, and the digital trail places it elsewhere entirely, then what exactly happened in Gatina as described in Edwin's account, and who in reality drove Caroline Maina's car to that location? Because it was Edwin's KCN 300D that later emerged as the vehicle linked to the disposal of Caroline's body in Kajiado. So essentially, Caroline was never in Kawangware. Caroline was abducted at Steamer Plaza, forced into Edwin's vehicle, and driven all the way to Kajiado, where her body was found. With the suspects having switched off their phones, nobody can say for sure where they were at that exact moment or in that period of time when Caroline Maina is killed and her body is dumped. In the end, murder tapes would see the ODPP took a defective plea bargain before Justice Alexander Muteti. Roslyn Toom, a prosecution counsel, told the court in her victim assessment report that the family, that is Caroline Maina's family, had been informed about this process. What Roslyn did not tell the Muteti court is that the family was completely against this deal. Not just because it made no sense, but ultimately because it was a miscarriage of justice and that it took Edwin Otieno out of a crime that the entire investigation had made him appear central to either its commission or knowledge about it.
Because I felt like ana favor mwenye sana sana alikuwa anamenshoniwa Edwin. Hiyo ni kama nilikuwa na feel yeye anamtoa, of which we know. I strongly feel Edwin was involved and I mentioned it in that letter. So ni vizuri tujue hii kesi imefika wapi, iko na judge mgani ama inaendelea aje, and justice be served.
I found time to ask Advocate Julius Nyaga about plea bargains and what happens when families can reject them, yet the prosecution proceeds to table the same.
I would not demonize plea bargain per se. It is a good tool, and like any tool, it's how you use it that matters. I believe plea bargain is a good tool because if somebody is admitting to an offense and they are willing to plead to the offense, in addition to reduced long years in court and a reduced sentence, and all the parties are agreeable, then it's in order. I think what is important is to consult the victims or the complainants. They are okay with this decision. They need to be consulted. We represent victims in court in pursuant to the Victim Protection Act. And so long as the victims are consulted and they give their contribution to that decision, I think what makes plea bargain fall or look as if it is being misused is when critical players like the victims are kept out of it and they are not consulted. They need to say, would they be open to these people pleading to a lesser offense?
I was asking because the ODPP in Homa Bay turned down a plea bargain request by Suleiman Kabasa, who was caught on camera alongside his brother beating a man to death. Suleiman wanted to plead to manslaughter, but when Collins Okiro's family declined, the State Council turned down that offer.
The Victim Protection Act, Section 9 says, their voice need to be heard. They need to make submissions on issues that touch on them. And therefore, if they are not amenable, then the DPP should consider, if that is the only reason why the plea bargain is being considered. If it is on the basis of evidence, it's a different question. But if the plea bargain is being considered because the accused persons want a plea bargain, okay, or it is a tool to reduce, it's a good tool to reduce congestion, it's okay. But I think if the victims are not amenable, then the victims will always feel they were shortchanged. There will be no justice for them. If you force a plea bargain when they are opposed to it and they have not aired their voice, and you've completely ignored the victims, then you have a raw deal for them. They will not say it's justice. They will say this case, it is a DPP and the accused persons who agreed, and they will even suspect foul play.
I had previously asked Advocate Mungandishu that question when he appeared in our episode on Stephen Kinini Wangondu and the case involving the murder of his son.
57 of the Constitution says that the prosecution has the power to commence prosecution and to discontinue. It is not the court's power to institute or to discontinue any prosecution. That power rests squarely on the prosecution. So even if there is overwhelming evidence against Mahinda, and the prosecution says we wish to substitute this charge with a lesser charge, there is nothing that the court can do, unfortunately. The court works, and if you look at the plea bargain, the only role of the court is sentencing. Because remember, the court is a neutral arbiter. In our justice system, we have an adversarial justice system, unlike many parts of Europe where you have an inquisitorial system, where the judge or the judicial officer almost goes into the arena of the litigants and does the work that most lawyers do. But unfortunately for us, since we're in an adversarial system, the judge just plays a neutral arbiter. Think of it as a civil case. If I sue you for owing me 10 million shillings, then I say, we enter into a deal with you, and you say, how about I pay you or you pay me 5 million shillings so that we can finish the case? The judge has no business to come and tell you, no, there is overwhelming evidence that he owes you 10 million. We must go on with this 10 million. The judge is a neutral arbiter. He will just take whatever it is that you've given, and at the end of the day, his work is to enter judgment based on the issues that you've presented. So similarly, that's the same case with the criminal cases. There's nothing the court would have done under these circumstances.
Ultimately, the weight of the case narrowed into a single legal outcome shaped by the plea agreement. Samuel Okoth Adinda accepted responsibility, admitting to his role in the events that led to Caroline's death, and the court, taking into account the lesser charge of manslaughter and the terms of the agreement, sentenced him 8 years for murder, 8 years for the torture, 8 years for gouging Caroline's eyes out, 8 years for taking her through emotional shock before killing her. For Edwin Otieno, however, the proceedings ended differently, with the plea bargain effectively removing Samuel from a full trial and the remaining evidential thresholds not resulting in a conviction against him. Edwin was set free. And just like that, after months of shifting accounts, disputed movements, and competing narratives, the court's decision closed one chapter of the case, while leaving behind questions that the courtroom did not fully answer. Why did they kill her? Because clearly, Samuel Okoth Adinda lied to the prosecution and to the court. What really was the reason behind such a well-planned murder?
I'm always in a puzzle. Kwa nini mtoto wetu akauawa? Na aliuawa unyama sana. Na mtu kuomba plea bargain, then it clearly shows. Si plea bargain kama kukubali umefanya makosa. So, hiyo inamaanisha Ayewa alifanya investigation yake vizuri na akaachia koti part yao. Lakini sasa pale ilipofika kotini pale, things went south, if I could say so. But to answer your question, sijawahi pata reason why mtoto wetu akauawa na akauawa unyama hivyo. Sijawahi. Hata mimi ujiulize hiyo swali every other day.
So life has not been easy for me. I can say that I have carried a very deep grief inside me. It hasn't been easy. There was a time the son asked me, he calls me mom, so he asked me one day,
Just take your time and let me know if you need to take some break. Do you think we need to pick it up in a minute or two?
It's okay. You
Okay,
can just
okay.
go on. No problem. I think personally, the fact that I never got a chance of mourning Carol, anytime a story comes up, it really carries me away. But it's okay. As I was saying, it hasn't been easy. I'm the one who took in her kids. She left 2 sons. By the time she was dying, the firstborn was in class 7. The other one was in grade 2. So it hasn't been easy for us. This firstborn son, there are instances he has asked me, Mom, why did Edwin kill my mom? And for sure, because he knew Edwin. So I got to learn that Edwin was even a friend to the mom at some point. So Nick knew of Edwin. And when the news spread that the mom had been killed, of course he was watching news and he came to learn that it was Edwin who killed the mother. Because he was big enough to understand. So I kept like ninamficha, but there was a time he asked me. And I didn't have an answer. I just told him, bado tunaendelea kugoja maamuzi ya koti. So I can't say that life has been easy.
We lost a very special person. We lost a sister. My mom lost a daughter. My nephews lost a mom. So I think it is fair koti iseme hii kesi imefika wapi. Tuache kufichwa mambo zenye tunafaa kujua. It is important, and whoever did it, because watu walishikwa, the investigation was done, na watu wakashikwa na wakapelekwa kotini. But as we speak, sijui nani yako ndani, nani yako nje. You know, it is important tujue, especially hiyo mambo ya plea bargain. It is important tuambiwe alipewa, even after I did a letter yenye mimi nimekataa.
At this point, it is important to note that by the time we sat down with Caroline's family in October 2025, retracing her final days and holding on to hope for answers, they did not yet know that just 2 months earlier, on August 15th, the case against Edwin Otieno and Samuel Okoth Adinda had already been quietly concluded back in Nairobi. In the end, what remains is the memory of a life cut short and the unsettling trail of questions left behind. Questions that refuse to rest and those that refuse to be buried, much like the truth itself. For a case that seemed so deliberate, so calculated, so intertwined, the path to justice took a turn that many are still struggling to understand. You see, plea bargains are designed to ease the wheels of prosecution and to secure cooperation to bring clarity to complex crimes. They are meant to serve justice and not to distort it. They are meant to strengthen cases and not to fracture them. And yet in this particular case, one cannot help but ask, when a deal appears inconsistent with logic, when it raises more questions than it answers, and when it seemingly shields one while exposing another, is justice truly being served or merely negotiated? How does one man walk free while another stands trial when their paths, their actions, and their presence in the final moments of Caroline's life appear so deeply connected? Was this strategy or was it compromise? So tonight, we ask the question that lingers long after the courtroom empties. Will true justice ever be served for Caroline Wanjiku Maina? We've been watching Murder Tapes, signed in blood. Thanks for watching. Good evening.